Our planet is home to numerous ancient structures that have permanently entered human history and are known worldwide. Among them, the Egyptian pyramids, the mighty Great Wall of China, and the mysterious Stonehenge stand out in particular. These monuments have been studied thoroughly, featured in textbooks, and depicted on postcards, as they are vivid symbols of antiquity. However, the deeper we delve into the past, for example, in the jungles of long-abandoned lands, massive stone heads weighing up to 20 tons have been found, whose existence was unknown until the early 20th century. These ancient statues depict the images of vanished civilizations and rulers, about whom we now know only from archaeological finds. At the same time, in the lifeless desert, ruins have been preserved whose origin the mystery extends further beneath the depths of the sea bottom, where the remains of construction structures lie, seemingly impossible for existence, as their placement appears to contradict natural order. These discoveries resemble illustrations in a book that seemingly begins with obvious facts and ends with incomprehensible wonders. This so-called iceberg of ancient structures is not just a list of old buildings, but a complex mosaic. From tradition, all these discoveries are presented sequentially, from well-known and recognized monuments to those hidden beyond the boundaries of conventional historical knowledge, sometimes even due to their legendary mysticism. The deeper we go into this iceberg, the less certainty we have that our answers to the riddles of the past will be simple and unambiguous. Let us consider, for example, the famous Egyptian pyramids, monumental tombs of the pharaohs rising from the... For centuries, these structures have been perceived as eternal homes for the deceased kings, created to preserve their bodies and treasures for the afterlife. The most famous and majestic of them is the Pyramid of Khufu, built around 4,500 years ago, during the 16th-15th centuries BCE. This grand structure remained the tallest human-made building for centuries, and is now the only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world that has survived to our days. The triangular giants are built from millions of precisely fitted stone blocks, assembled with incredible accuracy. Their sides are oriented almost exactly along the cardinal points, indicating a high level of knowledge of ancient construction. Originally, the pyramids served as tombs, in which the mummies of the pharaohs and their treasures, meant for the afterlife, were stored. In myths and legends, it was said that the summits of the pyramids connected rulers with the gods, and this link, thus, the Great Pyramid of Khufu symbolized the pharaoh's ascent to the divine Sun Ra, extending his reign beyond earthly life and elevating him to the level of a divine being. This mysterious and magnificent structure has given rise to numerous theories and speculations regarding its true purpose and construction methods. Variations in the versions of these monuments' intended functions sometimes acquire mystical overtones, which only adds to the mystery of their image and intensifies our desire to understand how ancient architects managed to create such awe-inspiring structures in scale and precision. In modern times, quite bold and often incredible hypotheses about the purpose of ancient pyramids have appeared. Some believe that these monumental constructions could have served as astronomical observatories, or even as sources of unknown energy. In popular culture, ideas have repeatedly appeared suggesting that extraterrestrial civilizations may have participated in pyramid construction, leaving behind secret traces on Earth. However, from a scientific perspective, archaeology fully rejects such fantasies and supernatural theories. The true nature of the pyramids of Giza is the result of highly developed engineering skill and craftsmanship of the ancient Egyptians, who created this grand legacy through incredible effort and mastery by thousands of their fellow countrymen working for centuries. It was their hands that built these astonishing monuments, serving as evidence of human ingenuity and hard work. This narration is free from advertisements. Therefore, I want to tell you about our project on the Boosty platform. There are already 2 analyses available devoted to the myths and images surrounding the so-called iceberg, one concerning conspiracy theories in the CIS, and the other about fetishized images. A 3rd analysis is expected soon, which will discuss the secrets related to terrorist acts. In connection with this, for new viewers wishing to join our community, I have halved the subscription price. Don't miss the opportunity to gain access at an affordable cost. The link is provided in the description. Next to the eastern edge of the necropolis, rising from the sands, stands an imposing figure, the famous Great Sphinx. This giant stone monument, carved from a solid limestone cliff, was created around 2530 BCE. It is located on the Giza Plateau and depicts a lion with its length is approximately 73 meters and its height about 20 meters. Experts believe that the face of the statue bears the portrait features of Pharaoh Khafre. The Sphinx's gaze is directed eastward, which, according to ancient beliefs, held special significance. Over the centuries, both the pedestal and the figure itself have been exposed to wind and human-made damage. As a result, the statue is now missing its famous nose, and the ceremonial beard has been lost. There is a popular legend claiming that the Sphinx's nose was shot off with a cannonball during the Napoleonic campaigns. However, historical drawings and archives from the 18th century indicate that the statue was already without a nose at that time. More detailed studies show that its face lost this feature long before the French military expeditions. An ancient Arab chronicle also survives, offering an alternative version. According to this account, the Sphinx's face was mutilated by a fanatic Sufi, displeased with local peasants who sacrificed crops to the gods, as well as for the well-being of the Nile. Unrelenting centuries have given rise to numerous theories, often contradicting each other. One hypothesis, proposed in the 1990s, suggests that the Sphinx's foundation could have been heavily eroded even before. If true, the statue's age could far exceed the official datings, making it much older than commonly believed. Despite extensive research, geologists offer various explanations for the origin of the famous Sphinx shape, and scientists' opinions remain divided. Most academic scholars, however, adhere to the traditional version, considering that the monument was built during the time of the Hyksos, approximately 2,500 years before our era. At a time when the era of the Great Pyramids had already ended, and the construction of huge burial structures was reaching new heights, the ancient Egyptians continued to create tombs. However, these more recent burials no longer had the grandeur of earlier monuments and challenged people's usual ideas about the scale of construction. One example is the tomb of Tutankhamun, built in 1223 BCE in an area known as Sheikh el-Bared, distinguished by its restrained architecture and size compared to other royal tombs. It was concealed within the rocky depths of the Valley of the Kings to hide it from outsiders. The name of this tomb only became widely known worldwide nearly 1,000 years after its construction, when in the 19th and 20th centuries, the British archaeologist Howard Carter discovered the nearly untouched tomb of a young pharaoh. Inside, he found treasures, gilded shrines, 3 nested coffins, and the mummified remains adorned with a magnificent gold mask, which created a sensation in the scientific community and garnered global attention. For scholars, this was a groundbreaking event, the first time in history that an entire royal burial had been found intact, almost undamaged, providing a valuable opportunity to better understand the religious practices and burial rituals. This discovery sparked a wave of interest and revived the passion for Egyptology, known as Egyptomania. However, to the general public, the tomb of Tutankhamun is remembered not only as a scientific discovery, but also as the source of numerous legends about the so-called Pharaoh's Curse. Soon after the tomb's discovery, Lord Carnarvon, who financed the archaeological expeditions, suddenly died, and many connected his death with the mystical curse allegedly hovering over the site. Such rumors of a curse began spreading worldwide and fueled the myth that anyone disturbing the resting place of an ancient king would inevitably face punishment. Society was genuinely fearful. People seriously worried about the tomb being looted. At the same time, scientists offered quite objective explanations. For example, Carnarvon's death could have resulted from blood poisoning or other natural causes. Nevertheless, the legend of the curse persists to this day, enveloping the famous burial site in an aura of mystery and mysticism, enhancing its enigmatic image. In the same era, approximately in the 25th to 30th centuries BCE, another mysterious megalithic structure arose thousands of kilometers from Egypt, Stonehenge. This unique formation is located on the Salisbury Plain in England, in a windy and spacious area. Already in the late Neolithic period, around the 3rd and 4th millennia BCE, the ancient inhabitants of Britain erected a large circle of standing stone monoliths here. These menhirs, so-called ancient stone pillars, form an impressive ring, with pairs of massive stones placed in the center of the complex, crossed by continuous horizontal slabs. This structure resembles a giant stone horseshoe in shape. The name given to it is Stonehenge, which translates as stone that rises. What this monument was intended for and what role it played, scientists still cannot say with certainty. Researchers assume that this mysterious construction could have served as an astronomical observatory, part of religious rites, or a site for cult ceremonies. However, the exact purpose and function of Stonehenge remain a mystery, inspiring new guesses and hypotheses. Situated on a plain, it seems to beckon with its mysterious appearance and continues to attract the attention of researchers and enthusiasts of ancient secrets, highlighting the richness of ancient British culture and their skill in creating mystical stone ensembles full of enigmas and symbols, many of which have come down to us through the ages. Archaeologists are convinced that we are looking at a unique and extremely important cultural center, whose significant historical and astronomical meaning is difficult to overestimate. Its main axis is precisely aligned with the sun, and this is no coincidence. During the summer solstice, the first morning rays of the rising sun pass through specially cut or positioned holes between the stone blocks, illuminating the very center of the ancient circle. Thus, in those years, the sun's rays precisely during the summer solstice strike the center of the structure, creating a special lighting effect that undoubtedly held magical or religious significance for those who built it. Similarly, during the winter solstice, the setting sun aligns along the opposite line, indicating a precise and complex astronomical orientation of the entire complex. Perhaps this sanctuary served not only as a cultural or religious platform, but also as a kind of ancient astronomical calendar, enabling farmers to track seasonal changes, plan sowing and harvest times based on the sun's movement. Researchers and archaeologists also find burial remains around this monument, Stonehenge, which suggests that it was similarly used for funerary rituals and ancestor worship. It is likely that there were funeral ceremonies related to ancestor cults, and festivals were held to unite people in memory of the departed. Over time, the ancient people who built this massive stone circle disappeared without a trace, leaving no written records about themselves. Therefore, their name and the true purpose of the monument have been lost forever in the depths of history. For centuries, Stonehenge remained a mystery to humanity. Its ultimate meaning was only accessible to mystics and legends surrounding the site. Medieval inhabitants of Britain tried to explain the origin of this enigmatic structure using myths and legends. It was said that the powerful wizard Merlin ordered giants to move these enormous stones from afar, possibly from Ireland, to erect the monument in memory of fallen heroes. Some believe that the giant stones were placed by the devil and served as a curse, while others believe they were laid by mighty giants from Pallini, legendary musical instruments playing on rolling waves. Modern science, based on archaeological excavations and analysis, has definitively proven that the construction of this ancient complex had nothing to do with magic or enchantment. It was built by Stone Age people armed with ordinary tools, primitive levers, and sledges, and possibly used sleds to work on wet ground. These simple yet highly effective tools allowed them to move. Nonetheless, the authentic enchantment of this place remains to this day. Neo-pagans and druids continue to gather annually at the ancient stones to greet the sunrise during solstices, a tradition dating back to deep antiquity and preserved through millennia. For modern people, this site remains sacred, a symbol of the connection between eras, a bridge between the past and the present, part of a legacy preserved through the darkest ages of history. Hengist stone and its closest counterparts in the British archipelago, such as the stone circles, represent only a small part of the rich heritage of prehistoric Europe. Their purposes and rituals are not yet fully understood, and each expedition, each archaeological discovery, brings us closer to comprehending the deeper meanings of these ancient monuments, created by our ancestors. Now, let us shift our focus to Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, where, according to ancient historians, another legendary wonder of the ancient world existed, the Hanging Gardens of Sumer, not the Gardens of Babylon, as they are often called. This masterpiece of architecture and horticulture was renowned for its extraordinary beauty, greenery that seemed to float amid the bustling and populous city. Legends and traditions speak of these gardens as an oasis of green and peace, rising in the form of a multi-tiered terrace pyramid planted with exotic trees and bright flowers. According to Greek legends, they were built around the 6th century BC by King Nebuchadnezzar II, especially for his beloved, the beautiful Amidis, who missed the landscapes of her homeland mountains. The terraced gardens were somewhat like a multi-layered pyramid shrouded in greenery, with an abundance of plant life to remind them of their native land. The multi-level gardens, resembling an upward-reaching pyramid structure, were filled with exotic trees and vibrant flowers from around the world, creating a unique ornament of lush greenery against the noise and hustle. Watering the pools may have been carried out using ingenious mechanisms, among which a chain pump played a special role, an intricate engineering device that lifted water from the river and supplied vital moisture to the gardens. Such systems astounded ancient engineers with their ingenuity, creating comfort and beauty for royal palaces and urban oases. The Greeks and Romans listed the Hanging Gardens among the 7 wonders of the world precisely for their exceptional inventiveness, and nevertheless, archaeologists have yet to find definitive evidence of these gardens existing in Babylon. Moreover, none of the preserved cuneiform texts written in Babylonian cuneiform make direct references to such magnificent structures. Our knowledge is limited to descriptions left by much later Greek historians, who often relied on eyewitness accounts or hearsay. Therefore, the question of whether the Hanging Gardens truly existed remains open and debated. There is a hypothesis that these wonders might have been exaggerated stories, metaphorical images, or idealized representations of the Eastern paradise constructed by the Greeks. Other scholars believe that the gardens did indeed exist, but not in Babylon, possibly in the capital of Assyria, Nineveh. According to this version, King Sennacherib may have created a similar green garden in the 7th century BCE, and later legends attributed it specifically. However, despite numerous searches, excavations in the areas presumed to be the location of the gardens have yielded no conclusive findings of terraces or architectural remnants confirming their existence. It is possible that many of these stories are merely semi-mythical images that arose in people's imagination, although it is quite likely that they were based on real royal parks and oases that existed in the East in ancient times. Regarding the Parthenon, in the 5th century BCE, during the height of classical Greece, Athenians built a magnificent temple on the Acropolis summit, which became a symbol of classical architecture. This majestic monument was completed in 432 BCE and was dedicated to the goddess Athena, who bore the title Parthenos, protector of the city. The white marble structure of the temple, in the finest Doric tradition, impressed with its harmony and proportions, while the richness of its numerous sculptural decorations gave it grace and beauty. Inside the temple was one of its main treasures, a giant statue of Athena, created by the famous sculptor Phidias, adorned with gold and ivory, making it a truly great masterpiece. The temple served not only as a religious building but also as a storage for the city's treasures. Its interior, the Opisthatomos, housed the treasury of the Delian League, ensuring the safety of the city's strategic resources. Each column of the Parthenon slightly thickened in the middle, an optical technique known as entasis, allowing the creation of an effect of perfect proportion and visual stability, compensating for optical illusions. Thanks to such expert architecture, the Greeks created an illusion of superior harmony and perfection around the temple. They regarded the Parthenon as a sacred shrine to Athena and a symbol of their victory over the Persians, with its facing and architecture becoming a vivid expression of national. This temple became an embodiment not only of religious faith, but also of the cultural and political might of Athens, highlighting its status during the classical period. Over more than 2,500 years of tumultuous and eventful history, the ancient temple underwent numerous transformations and renaissances. In its early days, it served as a site of Christian worship, later becoming a Muslim mosque for a long period, reflecting shifts in religious beliefs and cultural structures. But the most dramatic chapter in the life of this monument occurred in the 14th century, specifically in the year 1687. At that time, during conflicts between the Republic of Venice and the Ottoman Empire, the temple, in an effort to maximize its strategic location, the Turks decided to use the ancient sacred temple as a huge powder magazine. They hoped that the Christian population, faithful to traditions and beliefs, would approach the sacred site with reverence and respect. However, a mere accidental mistake or a risky move led to an incredible tragedy. On September 26, 1687, a Venetian cannonball struck precisely in the heart of the temple, causing it. As a result of this devastating blast, a large number of broken stone blocks and fragments destroyed the central part of the structural complex, bringing down its upper tiers. Hundreds of people lost their lives in this explosion, many of whom were victims of chance or happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Many walls and the roof, composed of marble columns, collapsed under the pressure of the explosion and debris, turning this majestic complex into ruins and wreckage bearing traces of former splendor. To this day, the ruins of this historic monument remain, untouched yet partially destroyed, seemingly frozen in time, capturing the era of its former glory. Despite its man-made tragedy, the Parthenon remains a symbol of Western civilization, embodying architectural harmony and standing as a monument to legendary Greece. It stands as an eternal reminder of the power and cultural strength of the ancient Greeks. Today, Greek restorers undertake very careful and meticulous work to restore this monument. However, despite all efforts, none of the reconstructions can fully restore the Parthenon to the majestic beauty and grandeur it had during its peak, when it was the center of cultural and religious life in ancient Greece. Now let us move on to another epoch, the era of Chinese imperialism and the mysterious underground tomb. In the 6th century BC, after the death of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor who managed to unite all Chinese lands into a single empire, a new chapter began in his legacy and achievement, a grand burial complex almost unparalleled in history. Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum is not merely a tomb, it is an entire underground kingdom, whose construction took more than 38 years. It began when the emperor was just 13 years old and was completed after his death. In the remote green hills on the outskirts of Xi'an rises a giant mound, reaching 76 meters in height. Beneath this mound lies an untouched tomb, preserved from time and upheaval, which holds secrets and treasures associated with one of the most mysterious emperors in Chinese history. According to the descriptions of the ancient historian Sima Tianyi, the internal structure of this mysterious tomb is astonishing in its scale and complexity. Inside the burial mound, he states, there is a vast underground palace, built with precision down to the smallest details, replicating the layout and architecture of the emperor's capital. Within this hidden, securely guarded complex are exact models of palaces, priceless treasures, and extraordinary rare objects from that era. A particularly striking feature is the ceiling, decorated with a starry sky made of pearl constellations, resembling the night sky observed from above, filled with shimmering stars and mysteries. The floor is adorned with relief maps of the empire, highlighting rivers, mountains, and other geographical features. But the most impressive and truly astonishing aspect of this ancient tomb's description is that the rivers in this monument stands as a living testament to the power and wealth of ancient Chinese traditions, hiding countless secrets that modern scientists have yet to fully uncover. The mercury simulated as water could move, reflecting the flickering of torches, producing a dazzling visual effect. Inside the tomb were hidden intricate mechanical traps, concealed with false floors, meant to surprise. Emperor Qin clearly sought to ensure eternal peace, taking measures to keep his burial site inaccessible to outsiders. According to ancient legends, after the sovereign's interment, all childless concubines were sealed alive with him, so that the emperor's heart would remain whole in the afterlife. The craftsmen who worked on creating these complex secret chambers also remained inside their work forever, confined within the underground walls so that no one could uncover the tomb's secret or destroy it. Near the burial mound was placed the famous terracotta army, consisting of over 8,000 statues of warriors and officials, each with a unique face, created to guard the emperor in the afterlife. These figures were discovered for the first time in 1974 by farmers who, while digging a well, stumbled upon hidden clay statues beneath the earth. This sensational find shook the entire world. The terracotta army of Qin Shi Huang was dubbed the eighth wonder of the world, a unique monument of ancient culture. It is important to note that a significantly high concentration of mercury has indeed been found in the soil around the tumulus, serving as a clear confirmation of ancient. However, the central tomb of the emperor remains untouched for now. Archaeologists are not rushing to open it. They are carefully and gradually choosing the moment, consciously wary of both potential traps and current search and research technologies do not yet guarantee the preservation of ancient paints and materials. So the underground palace of Qin Shi Huang remains sealed until better times. The magnificence of China cannot be imagined without its grand masterpiece, the Great Wall of China. It is the longest defensive barrier created by humans and simultaneously one of the most impressive engineering marvels in history. Construction of this wall began around the 3rd century BC during the reign of Emperor Qin Shi Huang, who unified the fragmented fortifications of previous rulers, connecting them into a single structure. In the centuries that followed, through many eras and dynasties, the walls were significantly extended and fortified, transforming into an all-encompassing defensive system. It was only completed by the 16th century AD during the Ming dynasty. The total length of all sections, including walls, towers, and moats, reached over 21,000 kilometers, an awe-inspiring structure that forms a network of numerous fortresses. The average height of the wall is 7 to 8 meters, with a base width of 6 to 7 meters. Different materials were used depending on the region and available resources. Due to its scale and technological complexity, the Great Wall of China remains a symbol of the might and engineering genius of ancient China. The compacted earth and stone blocks were later bonded with a durable lime ore mortar, creating a solid foundation for the impressive structures. The main purpose of the wall was practical: to mark and defend China's northern borders from constant raids by nomads such as the Xiongnu, as well as other groups of barbarian tribes threatening the stability of the empire. The wall served as a reliable lookout line, along which signal towers were positioned to relay alarm calls about approaching enemies through smoke and fire, enabling rapid transmission of signals over long distances. However, contrary to popular belief, the Great Wall was not an impregnable barrier. History shows that sometimes nomadic armies managed to bypass or bribe the guards, allowing them to breach the defenses and enter imperial territory. For example, in the 13th century, the Mongol army under Genghis Khan simply broke through certain sections and soon conquered all of China. In the 17th century, Manchu forces exploited internal unrest and chaos, crossing the Great Wall and seizing power in the country. Nonetheless, despite such incidents, the Great Wall became, for the Chinese people and culture, a symbol of invincibility and resilience. In Chinese thought and culture, this structure acquired a metaphorical significance: unbreakable power, embodying the indomitable spirit and strength of the nation. Over time, many myths and legends developed around the wall. One of the most widespread is a rather frightening story that during construction, the bones of deceased workers were added to the. This legend is reflected in folk tales, particularly about Menzianui, whose husband was buried within the wall. However, archaeological studies do not support this claim. Burial practices and construction methods do not indicate that human bones were incorporated into the building material. Of course, many people died during the long period of construction. They numbered in the thousands, but no corpses were sealed inside the wall. Moreover, decomposition over time would have led to structural failure, and the wall would simply have collapsed. Another widely spread myth claims that the Great Wall can be seen with the naked eye from the moon. This false idea arose in the 18th and 19th centuries and was reinforced in 20th century popular culture. In reality, the human eye from the Earth's surface cannot. Observing it from a satellite or spacecraft requires special instruments and optics. Cosmonauts have noted that the wall blends with the surrounding landscape and only becomes visible under specific lighting conditions, and when one knows the exact location of its segment. At the time when the Great Wall was nearing completion along the Eurasian border, on the other side of the continent, the center of the mighty Roman Empire shone, the city of Rome. Here, many architectural and engineering masterpieces were created, among which the most famous was the Colosseum, a majestic amphitheater located in the heart of the empire in the eternal city of Rome. The Colosseum, also known as the Flavian Amphitheater, was built in the distant year 12 AD, and the final construction work was completed in 80 AD, during the reigns of Emperors Vespasian and Titus. This grand architectural monument was erected on the site of an ancient lake that was part of Nero's palace complex. Through the efforts of ancient builders, a unique oval-shaped theater grew on this site. Measuring approximately 188, at its peak, the Colosseum could accommodate more than 50,000 spectators, an incredible feat of ancient architecture, comparable in capacity to modern stadiums. At that time, the Romans called this amphitheater either simply the arena or amphitheater, and the nickname Colosseum, meaning colossal, emerged only in the Middle Ages. This name likely derived from the nearby giant statue, the Colossus of Nero, which once towered nearby. Inside the walls of the Colosseum, about 80 entrance arches known as vomitoria were arranged across several levels. Through these entrances, crowds of people protected from the sun and bad weather flocked to the stands, eagerly awaiting the start of the spectacle. These events were not only entertainment, but also an important part of public life. People came here for the famous bread and circuses, to enjoy exciting and often brutal entertainments. On the arena, bloody gladiator fights were held, where slaves, prisoners of war, or volunteers eager for death fought to the death, demonstrating their strength and endurance. There were also hunts for exotic animals, and sometimes the execution of criminals in public displays of cruelty. According to chronicles, on special occasions, the surface of the arena was filled with water, turning it into a stage for this. Complex mechanisms and lifting devices were built in the underground levels, raising scenery, animals, and combatants to the surface, transforming the arena into a true theater of death. Gladiators, most of whom were slaves, prisoners of war, or adventurers, often fought on the brink of life and death. Sometimes the audience had the chance to show mercy. A gesture with the hand or thumb determined the outcome of the fight. Over approximately 4 centuries of operation, the ancient Colosseum witnessed thousands of tragedies and triumphs. Myths about the arena's ghosts have taken root in legends and traditions. For example, there was a belief that beneath the amphitheater's foundation, an entrance to a mysterious underground world was hidden, a place where the spirits of slain gladiators and victims for public. Later Christian stories also described the Colosseum as a place of martyrdom for the first followers of the new faith. Many of them, according to tradition, received the martyr's crown within these walls, dying from animal claws, or although historical facts about such events often spark debate, tradition regards the Colosseum as a site where many Christians endured torture and met their deaths in the fight against the cruelty of the era. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, the name and significance of the Colosseum gradually faded. In the Middle Ages, it was turned into a fortress and refuge, and in 1349, a powerful earthquake destroyed a large. Due to destruction and neglect, the ancient amphitheater was turned into a rich source of building material for new constructions. For a long time, until the 18th century, papal authorities permitted the dismantling of its stones and columns. They were used for the construction of palaces, churches, and other architectural monuments. Thus, one of the greatest Roman landmarks disappeared, leaving behind only ruins and legends passed down through generations, preserving the memory of its former grandeur and the brutality of this magnificent historical monument. Despite numerous destructions and temporary losses, the impressive northern segment of the Colosseum still stands in the heart of Rome, towering over the city and remaining a vivid symbol of the ancient capital. It is believed that as far back as the 8th century, an Anglo-Saxon monk named Bede wrote prophetic words indicating that as long as the Colosseum stood, Rome would endure. When the great ancient amphitheater falls, the city of Rome will decline, and along with it, the entire world. This stone giant, having survived many ages, has stood the test of. Currently, it is the largest open-air museum, recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. One of the most vivid examples of this heritage is the underground ruins of Pompeii. While thunderous applause and sporting competitions echoed inside Rome's amphitheater, one of the most tragic ancient disasters unfolded in southern Italy, in a small town called Herculaneum. In 79 AD, on the island of Vesuvius near the city of Pompeii, a volcanic eruption suddenly began, dramatically transforming the lives of local residents and obliterating the city from the face of the earth. Everything happened suddenly. The day before, life went on as usual. Residents strolled through streets, gathered at forums, visited baths and marketplaces. Spectacular fights and entertainments took place in the amphitheater, but the peaceful routine was shattered when a massive cloud of scalding ash and gas burst from Vesuvius, rising up to 30 kilometers into the sky. Soon, a fiery rain of hot pumice and thick ash poured over Pompeii and Herculaneum. The streets were covered with a layer of volcanic debris resembling a landslide, and a dense ash storm blanketed everything around. Many residents managed to escape, quickly leaving the city, and according to experts, up to three-quarters of the population were rescued. However, around 2,000 residents of Pompeii perished, suffocated by the scorching pyroclastic flows or overwhelmed by ash and gases. In just a few hours, this once thriving and lively city was turned into an ancient time capsule buried under a layer of tuff and ash. Hidden from view for nearly 17 centuries, it lay underground until the 18th century, when the first archaeological excavations began. As scientists carefully uncovered the ash layer, they revealed a stunning tableau of first-century life, like a frozen photograph. Households with furniture, shops filled with goods, vivid wall frescoes with images and inscriptions, graffiti decorating the walls, an open public toilet, bread baked in stone ovens. The bodies of people and animals who died in the final moments were scarred, yet inside the frozen forms, voids remained, traces of their remains from the past. Scientists filled these cavities with plaster, creating precise, realistic sculptures and casts. How exactly they died remains a mystery, allowing us to feel the genuine tragedy of those moments when everything suddenly turned into silent death. Mothers covering their children in moments of danger, men shielding their faces with cloth to hide the terrible signs of the catastrophe. All these images, gently but vividly, depicted the scene restored through artistic representations and eyewitness accounts. This scene resembled a performance, where each movement was filled with fear and despair. One eyewitness, who observed the catastrophe from a safe distance, wrote a sharp and dramatic letter describing the vast black cloud looming over the city. From this cloud, long tongues of flame erupted, moving like lightning but far larger and bloodier. The witness also recounted how his elder relative, a renowned scientist, threw himself onto a ship. The endless, malicious unfolding of events was seen by later moralists as divine punishment for sins and vices. As early as the 1st century AD, Christians compared the destruction of Pompeii. Indeed, among the excavated frescoes and inscriptions of the Pompeians, there are many openly erotic and satirical scenes reflecting the city's cheerful character. But the volcano did not erupt due to moral failings, but rather as a natural disaster beyond human control. Today, Pompeii is an invaluable archaeological monument, representing a unique living chronicle of everyday life and culture during the Roman Empire, offering extremely valuable insights. Moving to another significant aspect of history, it is worth recalling the legendary Library of Alexandria, the largest and most famous center of knowledge in antiquity, a symbol of intellectual development of the ancient. It was founded around the beginning of the 3rd century BC during the reign of Queen Cleopatra, or, according to other sources, at the accession of Ptolemy the Fern or his son, Ptolemy II, a representative of the dynasty that inherited Alexander the Great. The main goal of this grand institution was to gather all existing knowledge about the world, establishing Alexandria as a hub of science, culture, and enlightenment. The library was housed in a complex known as the Museum, an ancient Egyptian gymnasium, where scholars lived and worked, studying the vast collection of rare books, scrolls, and manuscripts. The royal authorities generously funded research and resorted to cunning methods to enlarge the collection. For example, All ships arriving in the port of Alexandria were required to surrender their books for copying. Original manuscripts were copied, and their copies returned to the owners, allowing for the creation of a unique and extensive collection of scholarly works. As a result, generations of scientists and thinkers were nurtured by the broad spectrum of knowledge stored in various languages: Greek, Egyptian, Babylonian, Jewish, and others. Historians estimate that the library housed between 200,000 and 500,000 ancient manuscripts and scrolls. It was here that the greatest minds of the ancient world worked, whose discoveries and ideas greatly influenced subsequent developments in knowledge and culture. Euclid laid the foundations of geometry, creating the knowledge base upon which its further development was built. His contribution was so significant that he is considered the father of classical geometry, and his ideas influenced many subsequent generations of scholars. At the same time, Ratosfen undertook great calculations, determining an approximate size of the Earth's circumference, a task that previously seemed practically impossible. Archimedes is believed to have visited the famous Library of Alexandria and interacted with scholars of his time, indicating his active contact with the intellectual elite of that era. Although the history of the existence and fate of this ancient library is shrouded in mystery, it is known that several tragedies caused its wealth to diminish. The first and most significant loss occurred during Egypt's civil war. In 14 BCE, the Roman general Julius Caesar besieged Alexandria, and ships in the harbor caught fire, igniting. The fire quickly spread to the city, causing irreparable damage, including to the library. Tens of thousands of valuable scrolls, unique manuscripts, and documents were lost at that time. Despite all the destruction, the library endured, albeit in a weakened state, possibly in part or as subsidiary collections located in temples or monasteries. The next blow came in the second half of the 3rd century, when Emperor Aurelian Tuscus besieged and fiercely fought to capture Alexandria amid ongoing unrest and rebellions. The fighting took place near the location of the renowned library, in Rukion. Many valuable items were once again lost, and the city suffered severe destruction. The final dramatic episode was related to religious conflicts that ignited at the end of the 4th century. In 491 AD, the Christian patriarch Theophilus ordered the closure of the pagan Serapis temple. Additional manuscripts and information, known as the subsidiary library, located in the temple, were also destroyed. As a result, thousands of years of accumulated knowledge and cultural treasures vanished. Thus, the treasures of ancient wisdom, which had existed for entire millennia, ceased to exist and fell into oblivion. The popular legend states that the final blow to the library was dealt by the Arab conquerors of Egypt. According to these stories, when the Arab military leader Khalid Ammar learned of the library's wealth, he allegedly declared, "If it contains the same as the Quran, then it is useless, and if it holds something else, harmful, it should be burned." However, most respected historians view this story with skepticism. In reality, by the end of the 7th century, the great library in Alexandria no longer existed, and none of the early Arab sources confirm its complete destruction or existence during that period. Against the backdrop of these tragic events, there is another magnificent sight, Mount Nemrut. At the top of this mountain, located in southeastern Turkey at an altitude exceeding 2,000 meters, stands a unique ancient sanctuary built in the 1st century AD. In 60 BC, a grand monument was erected here, the tomb of King Comogenes, sometimes referred to as King Dhtp Sheri. This powerful and imposing structure was constructed to honor the memory of the ruler. The central object is a massive tumulus, about 50 meters high, built from large pebbles and piled directly over the presumed king's grave. This monument symbolizes power and eternity, and its scale and symmetry continue to inspire admiration today. On the edges of the ancient territory known as Mount Nemrut, it was decided to place colossal statues reaching approximately 8 or 9 meters in height. These monumental sculptures depicted the king himself, surrounded by patron gods. On the stone slabs decorating this sacred site, there were almost certainly figures of deities, such as Zeus, Ahura Mazda, the chief god in Persian tradition, and a synthesis. It is also possible that among the images were figures of Hercules and the fertility goddess Comagena, represented as a goddess of prosperity and wealth. The king Antiochus himself was depicted in these three-dimensional compositions, wearing luxurious royal attire. On either side of the monuments, bas-reliefs and statues displayed unholy olive branches. Later, the heads of these majestic statues were toppled to the ground, possibly due to earthquakes or deliberate acts by vandals and destroyers aiming to obliterate the sacred sculptures. Today, these enormous stone heads scattered at the foot of the thrones create a breathtaking scene, especially during the pre-dawn hours. That is why Nemrut is often called the Mountain of the Gods, a sacred place filled with mysticism and the forces of the past. The sanctuary on Mount Nemrut was forgotten for a long time. It remained hidden from human sight for centuries and was rediscovered only at the end of the 19th century. In 2011, it was discovered for the first time by a German engineer named Sester, who was engaged in geodetic measurements. Following this, several scholars arrived at the archaeological excavation site. These experts documented large-scale monuments as well as preserved cuneiform inscriptions, among which a record related to Antioch held special significance. Later, in the second half of the 20th century, specifically in the 1950s, extensive excavations were conducted under the direction of Teresa Gell, who sought to penetrate inside the tumulus, believing, however, the hiding place intended for Antioch's burial was never found, sparking numerous guesses and theories. Some believe the burial could have been situated deep beneath the stone heap or concealed within the mountain itself. To this day, archaeologists have not uncovered the ruler's remains, and some enthusiasts of mysterious enigmas think that treasure troves could be hidden inside the tumulus. Meanwhile, there's a version that the tomb has long been plundered, or that it was originally just a symbolic monument rather than a real burial site. These sacred locations are included in the UNESCO World Heritage List and are protected by the state, ensuring the preservation of their uniqueness. Every year, especially at night, travelers and tourists ascend to the summit of Nemrut Da to witness the dawn one after the other amidst the silent stone gods. This is an extraordinary spectacle immersed in mysticism, possessing a special power that attracts many people. Regarding the Pont du Gard aqueduct, it is situated in the French province of Languedoc, a few kilometers from the city of. This ancient engineering monument crosses the Garden River and is a three-tiered bridge built by the Romans around the middle of the 1st century AD, based on new archaeological findings. The aqueduct played an important role in the Roman water supply system, providing Nimes with fresh water and connecting it to sources located on elevated grounds. Its massive structure and technical complexity testify to the skill of Roman engineers, who created a durable structure capable of withstanding the test of more than 2,000 years. It was part of a grand and complex aqueduct system extending 50 kilometers, supplying the city of Nimes with clean water from sources located in the Uzès region. This bridge was a unique construction, with a height ranging from 47 to 49 meters, making it the tallest and most spectacular aqueduct to have survived to this day. Its majestic design, made of yellowish limestone, consists of 3 levels with arched spans. In the lower part are 6 large arches, slightly above it 11 intermediate ones, and at the very top there are as many as 35 small arches. A narrow upper channel carried a flow of water which smoothly descended along its entire length with no sharp drops and minimal slope. The engineering craftsmanship of the Roman masters is truly impressive. The height difference between the beginning and end of the aqueduct was only about 17 meters, which over a length of 50 kilometers resulted in a gradient of less than 1/10 of a millimeter per meter. Achieving such precision in antiquity was exceedingly difficult, and to this day, scientists admire such engineering ingenuity. After the fall of the empire, the structure lost its original purpose. However, the arcaded people and horse-drawn vehicles used it, and sometimes, in the lower tier, some dividing partitions were removed or destroyed, which threatened the collapse of the entire structure. Only by the 18th century was a separate bridge built nearby, and traffic over the ancient aqueduct was halted. In the 19th century and the 1850s, under the orders of Napoleon III, extensive restoration work. Today, this grand arch bridge, which has survived 2,000 years, is considered one of the most vivid symbols of Roman engineering genius. Nearby, amid the humid tropical valleys of Honduras, lie the ruins of the ancient Mayan city of Copan, famous for its pyramidal temples and inscribed stelae. This city was the capital of the powerful Shukub kingdom, located on the southeastern border of the Mayan civilization. For orientation, the Mayans in antiquity occupied territories that today are divided between Honduras and Guatemala. The city grew during the classic period of Mayan culture development. The first rulers settled here as early as the 4th century AD, and the height of Copan's prosperity occurred in the 7th to 8th centuries. Archaeological excavations show that up to 25,000 people lived within the city limits, and the area of the populated complex covered about 24 square kilometers. At the heart of the ancient city was a sacred acropolis, distinguished from afar by its magnificent temple pyramids, palaces, and 4 spacious plazas. Surrounding this sacred complex were residential districts, connected by a network of paved roads that provided movement and communication between different parts of the city. Speaking of Copan's main square, it's impossible not to mention its fame, as it was celebrated for its magnificent monumental stelae, stone pillars carved with the finest reliefs, on whose surfaces intricate patterns and hieroglyphic inscriptions were engraved. In the year 831 AD, King Vasha Klakun Uba Kaivil ordered the erection of a series of rich and majestic stelae here, depicting the figure of the ruler himself and his ancestors. These figures were surrounded by intricate feather patterns and scenes derived from mythology, all of which made the compositions truly masterpieces of Maya art. The stelae were distinguished by astonishing detail and are rightly considered the pinnacle of Maya civilization's craftsmanship. The pyramids of Copan, stepped temples rising above the plazas, served. Among them is especially renowned the hieroglyphic staircase, a monumental stepped structure of one of the temples, its steps covered with more than 2,000 hieroglyphs. This inscription is regarded as the longest of Maya-written chronicles and recounts the history of specific kings and events associated with their reign. At the base of the pyramids, archaeologists discovered an altar called Kum. It was a stone square block with meticulously carved portraits of 16 Copan rulers, on which one of the kings, Yaj Kuk Mo, passes the symbol of authority to his successor. Unfortunately, by the 9th century, the city of Copan gradually fell into decline. The last dated monument, restored by archaeologists, dates to the year 1822 AD and stands as the final evidence of the city's existence. After that, construction and habitation ceased, likely due to resource depletion and internal conflicts. In the 19th century, the ruins, surrounded by dense jungles, were rediscovered by explorers John Stevens and Frederick Catterud. They described with great admiration the scale and beauty of the once grand structures, adorned with exquisite carvings, and acquired a site for archaeological excavations to better understand the history of this mystery. Subsequently, systematic excavations began, revealing numerous tunnels beneath the pyramids, networks of passages and chambers where remnants of even older temples were stored. One of the most impressive finds was the Rosalil Temple. It was completely covered inside, which ensured its remarkable preservation, and its bright walls, painted in red and white, have retained their vibrancy to this day. Archaeologists discovered this temple in the 1990s by penetrating into the ruins left from the 16th century. Today, a precise replica of this unique monument is exhibited in the museum dedicated to Copan. Thus, excavations and studies of the ancient ruins continue to this day, revealing new pages in the history of the mighty Maya civilization, famed for its architecture and art. The sunken city of antiquity off the coast of Egypt, located in the Abu Qir Bay on the western branch of the Nile Delta, holds numerous mysteries and historical secrets. This city served as a major gateway for Egypt during the late periods of its history, approximately from the 5th century to the 31st year BCE. At that time, it was not only a significant trading hub with a busy commercial activity, but also a center for religious rituals and cults dedicated to the gods Amun and the Theban triad. After a series of devastating earthquakes and large-scale tsunamis that struck the region at the end of the 8th century BCE, the city lost its inviolability and was partially destroyed, eventually sinking beneath the sea and remaining on the ocean floor for centuries. Researchers and archaeologists who began excavations in the early 21st century uncovered a vast array of unique artifacts. Among the finds were statues of gods, preserved inscriptions, and wooden ship fragments. The most sensational discovery was the world's largest underwater necropolis, where 64 ships of various types were found sunken in coastal waters. For the scientific community, this find was a true revelation, significantly expanding knowledge about ancient Egyptian maritime culture. It is often emphasized that Heraklion, located nearby, had close ties to Greco-Egyptian culture, and the theory of its connection with Atlantis, as some suggest, on the opposite side of the world, in Peru, near the city of Cusco, lies one of the greatest stone fortresses of the Inca era, Sacsayhuaman. The builders aimed for this fortress to serve as a defensive structure on a strategically important route leading to the empire's capital, and it possibly also held religious and administrative significance. An astonishing feature of this complex is its massive walls, built from enormous stones that rise in the way and do not allow even a knife blade to fit between them. Standing before the grand Cyclopean constructions, one can marvel at the precision with which the blocks were laid, each weighing hundreds of tons. The entire complex appears as a masterful work of engineering, porphyry stones so heavy and massive that their placement seemed impossible without modern technology, yet archaeological research completely disproves myths about aliens or ancient technological marvels. The connection between the builders and the structure is attributed specifically to Inca culture rather than mysterious civilizations. Excavations have revealed sections of walls where blocks reach up to 12 meters in length, and beneath them are ruins of ancient chambers and storerooms, indicating that Sacsayhuaman was an important center related to the internal organization of the Inca Empire. Experimental studies have demonstrated that such giant stone monuments were constructed using levers and ropes without any supernatural or extraterrestrial technology. All elements of the structure can be explained by the existing technologies and skills of Inca craftsmen of the time, enabling ancient engineers to create truly remarkable constructions worthy of modern admiration. Overall, the discovery and study of these monuments attest to the sophisticated engineering culture of the Incas and their mastery in building grand and durable structures. On the territory of the ancient Dacian capital, an extraordinary artifact was found, a sun disk that caused a sensation in archaeological circles. This object is a carefully carved stone disk made of andesite, featuring a vivid radial ornament resembling sundials or an astronomical obelisk. The stone was discovered among artifacts brought by Zareg Zagitu's army from Romania. It is assumed that this disk was used in prehistoric times to measure time, perhaps as a sundial or another astronomical instrument. Its age is approximately dated to the 1st century BC or the 1st century AD, during the reign of King Decibel and the subsequent Roman conquest of Dacia. This find vividly demonstrates that the Dacians possessed knowledge and practical methods for telling time using sunlight, and also highlights the cultural influence of the Greco-Roman world, which left a noticeable mark on their material culture. Particular attention is drawn to the precise geometric shape of the disk, perfectly carved into a circle. The surface shows radial lines and internal notches resembling sun rays, indicating possible functions related to time measurement or other astronomical observations. This discovery has become a focus of active scientific debate, as it is considered a genuine archaeological relic. At the same time, most scholars do not confirm the hypothesis of an advanced astronomical knowledge and civilization among the ancient inhabitants of Dacia, capable of creating such complex instruments. In their view, these finds rather testify to contact and cultural interactions with the Greco-Roman world than to a wholly independent scientific tradition, which is attributed to the Dacians with a highly developed astronomical system. Moving on to another mystery, it is worth mentioning the Yonaguni Pyramid, an unusual underwater formation off the coast of Yonaguni Island, located in the Ryukyu Archipelago, Japan. This site is a rocky structure with sharply defined terraces and visible right angles, which was discovered by divers in the 1960s, part 22 of 26. Opinions on the origin of this pyramid vary. Some researchers, such as the well-known marine geologist Masaki Kimura, consider it to be the ruins of an ancient sunken temple, as well as a possible remnant of a once existing city, dating back approximately 5,000 years from today. Others believe it is a natural morphological formation created by natural processes, simply consisting of rocks formed from sandstone. The large platforms and stepped shapes in the structure reach heights of up to 25 meters. An important argument in the debates is the absence of any artifacts indicating human use. There are no ceramics, tools, or other signs of human activity. The number of hypotheses about the pyramid's origin is increasing. Some suggest that it could have been part of the mysterious Japanese Atlantis, a legendary underwater civilization often mentioned in folk legends. Geologists and geophysicists indicate that the structure is most likely of natural origin and is part of a seabed relief system formed over millions of years under natural forces. However, if the structure were created by humans, according to Kimura's hypothesis, it would date back approximately 2,000 to 3,000 years, an era when written language and advanced culture did not yet exist on the Japanese islands. This supports the idea that the population at that time could have settled the islands using only primitive methods, and that the structure might have served either as a sacred site or as part of a sophisticated system of ancient observations. The scientific community's opinions on the age of this construction vary widely, from considering it a natural form to believing it to be an ancient man-made structure. This mystery remains one of the most striking megalithic archaeological phenomena, attracting genuine interest and fueling hypotheses about ancient civilizations that once existed across the Pacific Ocean. Unfinished obelisk in Aswan. In quarries along the Nile River near the Egyptian city of Aswan, one of the most impressive and mysterious examples of ancient Egyptian craftsmanship is found: the unfinished granite obelisk. This monumental monolith was begun, presumably, during the reign of Queen Hatshepsut, over 35 centuries ago, that is, in the 15th century BCE. Had it been completed and raised to the surface, its height could have reached about 42 meters, and its weight approximately 1,090 tons, which is twice the mass of any existing Egyptian obelisks today. However, during work in the massive red granite, numerous cracks were discovered, which created significant difficulties in its further processing. The stonemasons, faced with this, recognized that the project was impossible to complete and left it unfinished. The obelisk remained lying in the quarry, mostly untouched, still attached to the... Today, visible traces of ancient craftsmen's tools still survive at the site, including impressions made by grips used during the shaping process, left within granite holes and scratches. This unfinished specimen demonstrates the techniques employed by Egyptian stonemasons, illustrating how methods for working this heavy and difficult-to-shape material were developed. The quarry itself, along with the lying obelisk, has been protected as an important part of world cultural heritage since the 1970s. For modern science, this object is primarily valuable as a unique evidence. The example of this obelisk clearly shows how ancient artisans designed and implemented ideas for building such massive structures. The decision to abandon completion in this Antarctic anomaly. Wilkes Anomaly. In the remote and harsh region of eastern Antarctica, in an area known as Wilkes Land, one of the most This is a strong negative gravitational anomaly, which manifests as a sharply reduced gravitational field, as well as a ring-shaped formation approximately 418 km. Researchers found that this zone concentrates a large and complex geological anomaly, causing significant shifts in gravitational measurements. Such findings led scientists to hypothesize the presence of a large hidden impact crater, which could be the largest on Earth, with an estimated diameter of about 840 kilometers, more than 2.5 times the size of the known Chicxulub crater. This appears to be evidence of a colossal and powerful meteorite impact that occurred in the distant past, approximately 250 to 500 million years ago. Other hypotheses suggest that the anomaly can be explained by the presence of a dense amphibolite rock underneath a thick ice cover, or by volcanic activity, potentially driven by geothermal processes in the area. Unfortunately, direct samples, such as ice-embedded impressions or structural fragments, are currently impossible to obtain, complicating the definitive study of this phenomenon. In the end, The scientific community continues to investigate this area as a potentially important fragment of Antarctica's geological history. Currently, it is believed that the geological formations found here are not accidental artifacts, but represent a natural part of the tectonic landscape, formed over millions of years through internal Earth processes. The Night Labyrinth on the surface of Mars, in the western part of the Marinara Valley, is one of the most complex and mysterious geological structures, so-called the Night Labyrinth. This intricate massif features a network of intersecting deep fissures, grabens, narrow and winding valleys located near the Forces volcanic plateau. These formations create a system of passages and channels that form an actual maze within its rocky fabric, raising many questions among researchers about its origin and structure. Such a complex geological setup has been created as a result of prolonged geothermal activity and volcanic erosion, with the local layout indicating a richness of processes that took place over millions of years. This massif of cracks and winding valleys leaves a vivid impression with its organic yet remarkably structured form. Its features serve as a valuable source of information about the internal dynamics of Mars. As a result of these structures' formation, a unique network of interconnected fissures emerged, helping scientists understand the patterns of changes that took place over billions of years on the surface and within Mars's interior. Therefore, studying this complex geological object is a crucial contribution to understanding Mars's overall geological history and serves as an example of how diverse and intricate a planet can be. A planet that, until recently, seemed merely dead, devoid of signs of life and geological processes. The geological age refers to a very ancient era, hundreds of millions of years ago. During this period, processes associated with the slow cooling of the planet's molten crust and the development of tectonic stresses within it were underway on Earth. It was during this time that many natural structures formed, which still stand as witnesses to that distant epoch. Determining the exact date of their appearance is practically impossible, because these formations are products of natural geological processes and are not related to any human intervention. They are part of Earth's natural architecture: broad valleys, steep slopes, and flat uplands rising above the surrounding landscape, all results of slow geological transformations that shape the planet's surface. Modern research reveals a great diversity of minerals present in these formations. In the layers of the canyon, clay with sulfates and hydrated silicate rocks are often found, indicating a complex interplay between lava and water throughout geological history. These evidence points to a long and intricate evolution of the terrain, expressed in multi-layered reliefs and rock compositions. The main conclusion of the scientific community is that the labyrinth known as Night is not an artificial object, man-made structure, or natural. It formed as a result of natural weathering and fractures in the rocks, creating a complex relief. Unlike hypotheses suggesting the presence of megalithic structures or human constructions on Mars, versions supported by legends or fantasies, no space missions to date have found any evidence of their existence. The primary value of this region lies in its role as a key source of information about Martian tectonics and the planet's geological past. These insights have been obtained through numerous studies and observations using data provided by space probes, allowing for a better understanding of the internal structure and evolution of the Martian. Moving on to another fascinating discovery: the structure within the Brunicle Cave. In this untouched underground space located in the Tarn department in the Gorn region of France, unique stone constructions from the Neanderthal era have been found. In the 1990s, caving enthusiasts exploring the hard-to-reach labyrinths of the cave stumbled upon two circular structures made from debris of stalactites and nearby ancient hearths. Subsequent archaeological investigations confirmed the age of these objects, approximately 176,500 years old. This dating makes these structures the oldest known examples of intangible ritual monuments. The constructions consist of 999 fragments of stalactites, arranged to form two circular structures inside. The dimensions of these circles are approximately 6.7 by 4.5 meters, with the smaller figure measuring just over 2.1 by 2 meters. Both circles are built from stones, forming a moat or platform, with small piles of bouldens and stones in the center. In some areas, traces of charcoal and smoking lines have been found on the surface, indicating that fires were built there, likely for scientists believe these structures served as gathering places or ritual ceremonies. The presence of melted charcoal suggests that the ancient inhabitants knew how to control fire and organize manual labor. These findings disprove the old hypothesis about the Mesolithic antiquity of humans and confirm that this is at least a genuine monument created by Earth's early inhabitants, rather than a natural anomaly. Thus, these structures serve as valuable evidence of the social and spiritual world of our ancestors, demonstrating their ability to organize collective rituals and master fire. Finally, it is worth familiarizing oneself with the mysterious stone tubes discovered near Mount Baigan Shan, close to the city of Delinihe, in Qinghai Province, China. These unusual formations consist of a series of channels and tubular structures embedded in the rock wall and the shoreline of the Salt Lake Basin. The tubular structures resemble a complex system of seemingly carved or laid-out constructions located along the shoreline and within the rock, which intrigues researchers and enthusiasts of natural mysteries. Their origin, purpose, and age are subjects of debate and remain actively discussed within the scientific community, as such findings could shed light on ancient civilizations or uncover unique natural phenomena hidden. Preliminary chemical analyses revealed that these formations contain about 30% iron oxide, with large inclusions of silica and calcium within their structure. Further studies by Chinese geologists from the Institute of Geology determined that some of these formations retain growth rings similar to those found in trees. This fact has long been regarded as compelling evidence of a botanical origin for these objects, and the presence of fossilized roots or trunks strengthens this hypothesis. Additionally, radiation markers found in some structures are linked to the presence of uranium deposits in the surrounding rocks. This evidence indicates that radioactivity is a natural consequence of uranium inclusions embedded in the Collectively, these observations allow for the development of a reasonable scientific theory regarding the origin of these formations. Currently, scientists agree that the tubular structures are not artifacts of extraterrestrial civilizations or alien monuments. Most likely, they are either natural geological formations caused by local rock characteristics or fossilized plant remains and roots transformed into fossils over time. Efforts by proponents of ancient technological construction hypotheses to substantiate their theories with convincing evidence have not gained support among the broader scientific community, and such claims are not considered credible scientific arguments. In conclusion, the majority of factual data suggests that the landscape in question created these tubular formations through natural geological processes or organic accumulations. According to scientific expeditions, these formations fit well within the spectrum of typical natural formations rather than being the result of human activity or illusions of alien technological structures.